Alyssa knocked softly on the door, as she did every morning, before opening it with care. The pale light of day had already settled into the room. Ray was awake. She was no longer sleeping. Sitting upright in bed, her back perfectly straight against the pillow, she seemed to have been waiting for some time already, her hands resting calmly on the blanket, as though the night had been nothing more than a quiet pause in a day that had already begun. Alyssa paused briefly at the threshold. It took her only a few seconds to notice what betrayed the night, nothing dramatic. But Ray's eyes were slightly reddened, and her gaze carried that particular kind of fatigue that only follows hours of restless sleep. Alyssa understood immediately and did not ask any questions.
"Good morning, my lady."
Her voice remained soft, almost cautious, as though she instinctively sought to preserve the fragile calm of the room. She moved to open the curtains, letting the morning light slowly fill the space.
"Today is a day of rest,"
she added simply.
"The doctors have decided to suspend the sessions so you can recover."
Ray lifted her gaze slightly toward her. Alyssa continued, unhurried.
"So no rehabilitation, no speech therapy."
A quiet silence settled between them, one of those silences that carried no discomfort and that almost felt necessary after the strain of the previous days. Alyssa prepared the morning tray with her usual precise gestures, then remained still for a moment, considering how the day might unfold.
"If you feel up to it, we could go out for a while this afternoon,"
she finally suggested. Ray listened attentively. Alyssa thought aloud.
"The garden is pleasant, though it's still a little cool at this hour, and the library is open, of course."
Ray showed no particular enthusiasm. She simply watched Alyssa with that calm expression that always made her reactions difficult to read. Then Alyssa seemed to remember something.
"The screening room is open this afternoon."
This time, Ray lifted her eyes slightly. She reached for the tablet beside her and wrote a few words. Alyssa read,
"What film?"
She quickly checked the program on her phone.
"An old romantic classic,"
she replied after a moment.
"The story of a widowed man who meets a younger woman and falls in love with her despite himself.
She scanned the description.
Apparently, their relationship isn't very well received by those around them."
Ray looked at the screen for a few seconds. Then she wrote simply,
"Let's go."
The clinic's screening room resembled a small, private lounge more than an actual cinema. The wide, comfortable armchairs were arranged in a semicircle facing the screen, and the dim lighting gave the room a calm, almost intimate atmosphere. A few patients were already seated, and, of course, Madame Leclerc occupied one of the most central seats, a blanket elegantly draped over her knees as though she had settled in for the entire duration of the film. When she spotted Ray, her face lit up at once.
"Ah, there you are at last."
Her voice remained low, respectful of the setting, but her enthusiasm was unchanged.
"Come, sit here. Let's see whether this film truly deserves its reputation."
Alyssa gently positioned Ray's chair beside her. Madame Leclerc studied the screen with interest.
"A romantic classic,"
she murmured with an amused smile.
"That always promises a few interesting scandals."
The lights dimmed, and the film began. It opened on the quiet life of a man who had lost his wife several years earlier. He lived in a large house with unchanging routines, a quiet solitude. Then the young woman appeared, more vivid and spontaneous. Their meeting seemed insignificant at first, almost ordinary, but very quickly the story revealed its true nature. They grew closer, despite themselves, and around them, the glances turned disapproving. Alyssa followed the story attentively, but more than once, she couldn't help casting a discreet glance toward Ray. Ray watched the screen with calm focus, as though she were simply observing a story that bore no connection to her own life. At one precise moment, the man in the film said softly,
"Some encounters come too late in a life."
Ray allowed the faintest smile to form, so slight it might have gone unnoticed. But Alyssa saw it, and Madame Leclerc as well. She turned her head very slowly toward Ray, then back to the screen, before returning her gaze to Ray with a look that carried a quiet, mischievous understanding. The film continued for a few more minutes. Then the lights gradually came back on. The patients began to leave the room in a low murmur. Ray, however, did not seem disturbed. She simply looked at the now blank screen. Then she picked up the tablet. She wrote a few words. Alyssa read,
A beautiful story.
She lifted her eyes toward Ray, and for the first time since the night before, something in the atmosphere felt lighter, not joyful, but peaceful. Alyssa gently pushed the chair toward the exit, and the two of them left the room as the afternoon light slowly spread through the quiet corridor of the clinic.